Good morning, everyone, once again to our weekly broadcast. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, and we are back again with another 30-minute or thereabouts live broadcast for now, recorded then and put on our YouTube channel, and you'll get the address for that at the end of the broadcast. So again, another interesting topic today, and joined by a bunch of fantastic guests. So let me start off with Joanna. Just say hi, Joanna. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, David, for actually letting me join you today. I'm really excited to be part of the discussion.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Obviously, we've exchanged emails, and John mentioned you from time to time and things like that. And we are working on a case study for you currently. I'm getting it in there first before John gets it in. And yeah, look forward to hearing more from you
work
later
in
on.
Progress. If we could get it done in this calendar year, I'd be impressed.
Yeah. Well, just keep believing, keep having faith, John. So
Like
a big welcome back to Wendy again. Hi, Wendy.
Hello, thank you very much for having me back.
Excellent, no problem at all. And one of our guests from maybe a year or a year and a half ago, Mr. Mark Fernihough. Hi, Mark, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Nice to be here again. So yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So let's get straight into today then. So first of all, for any who do happen to be joining or watching the recording for the first time, my name is David Johnson. I'm the CEO of a company called Leo Crowdfunding. We're an equity property crowdfunding platform, and we do this every week just by way of a bit of market update. We cover different topics that are relevant to really anyone who's involved in the world of property, either as a developer, fundraiser, investor, and really designed to be sort of educational, but just sort of network community type value. Sort of the glue that holds it all together, you might say. Mr. John Carr, I'll hand over to him and introduce himself. Yeah,
I'm the glue, or the person that makes sure stuff that gets dropped keeps coming back until it gets done. Just a point of order, actually, I'd say anyone in the world of property focused in the UK, this is a very UK focused broadcast. We are interested in anything going on in the UK when it comes to strategies, property conditions, market conditions, turbulence as we're having right now at the time of this recording when it comes to the government and how that's affecting interest rates. My background is being a landlord and investor, US and UK. Started in the US a long time ago, and then 10 years later started in the UK. So these days in both, and I'm here to help raise questions and get the conversation rolling.
Fantastic. So if any of the attendees have a question or a comment, then please put it into the Q&A. We don't use the chat box, put it into the Q&A, and then myself or John can pick it up and bring it to the conversation as required. So market update, and not that I wish ill on anyone, shape or form, but John, when I saw this week, I think we traded messages on this. It was kind of like not wishing any ill on anybody, but it was like, okay, this changes the conversation about this whole area of compliance. So for those that don't know, a gentleman was jailed for 12 years very recently, around the whole area of financial promotions, fraud, and property investment. So, John, this is a bit of a game changer. Someone actually going and doing time for running what turned out to be, an illegal collective investment scheme.
Yeah, there's a few issues here, and this was a fraud conviction. Funny enough, if I remember right, his son's already served jail time or is serving jail time for a different collective investment scheme violation. I tend to use it as an example for why the FCA and the legal system will take action. So when you would go to the Property Investor Show or other things around the UK, Harlequin used to have the biggest stand. They had a massive stand, and they paid commissions to not only their sales force, but they paid commissions to their customers who referred people, and fairly large ones. I think it was up to 10% for those referrals. And yeah, their contracts got progressively worse. They were spending a lot of money suing people who wrote negative stories about them. And they did win a number of lawsuits. And it was rumored at the end when things fell apart and the FSA and then the FCA started to take action that they were spending 50% of all the investors' money on sales and marketing rather than actually building things. And as it says here, they took in money for 9,000 units and they actually built 200. And if I understand this correctly, this article, those 200, some of which are actually on land that floods approximately every 10 years. So you don't really want a hotel in a flood zone. Yeah, it's a very long story, but finally we got some justice.
Yeah, I'm actually quite familiar with this one, John. I've never mentioned that to you. Back in like 2001, 2, 3, and around that time, right through then to particularly 2008, 9, 10 after the crash, was quite heavily involved with like a network of IFAs, accountants, and a lot of people who had the SIP clients who then went into Harlequin. So when I was in overseas property in especially 2012, we met a lot of people who had invested in Harlequin. People were trying to get money back out. So I was sort of there in the market whenever all the problems were starting. And it was again, indicators there. The last thing I'll say before we move on is what was interesting was the judge confirmed that the scheme was probably genuine from the outset. So when they set it up, it doesn't seem there's any criminal intent or anything like that. But there came a point when clearly the model was flawed, the risk to the investors had changed from the initial investment, and because they didn't take action, that's really what has been the issue here. And I think that's a warning to even modern day developers, modern day, similar companies to this, that when things start to go wrong, you've got to be, communicating with the investors, and you've got to be transparent and upfront with them.
Good point. Very good point.
I think that's key. So yeah, that we may well discuss this as we go forward. But let's get into this week's topic. They're delighted to have on Joanne, Mark, and Wendy. We're talking serviced accommodation today, and I'm going to let John sort of host it and ask the questions that we're putting to the various attendees today. But by way of introduction, let's let each one sort of take 1 minute each and just explain their background and what they do in service accommodation, please. So Mark, you go first.
Starting with me, I assume.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm down in sunny Falmouth in Cornwall. So we specialize in acquiring guest houses and small hotels, sort of refurbishing them and ready, so they're ready for our model, and then dropping our automated business model into them. So there's sort of two big upsides, and that's sort of, very high annual revenue, and then capital appreciation on these buildings as well, sort of along the way, basically. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent, thank you very much. That's what I like. Next is Joanna, and before John mentions it, we had hoped to have Joanna's case study up before this broadcast. That hasn't happened, so that's why Joanna's slide looks slightly bare. But by next Thursday's webinar, the team has committed to John that we'll have, Joanna, your case study up on the platform. So you want to introduce yourself and give us your background in service accommodation, please.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. So I am based just north from London in Bedfordshire, focusing on serviced accommodation. It's something I've been doing for the past, almost 4 years. Slightly different angle and slightly different type of serviced accommodation to what Mark and Wendy are doing. So we focus on kind of tailored offering to people looking for accommodation and temporary accommodation for various reasons, slightly kind of mid-term, short and mid-term stays. I started with a rent-to-rent portfolio in 2018. Moving from a teaching position as an early years teacher. So it has been a fantastic journey, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed learning about SA. And we, in the past year or so, we started scaling up our management service and also purchasing to service accommodation. So that's me in a bit of a nutshell before the case study hopefully gets published, as you said, soon.
Yeah, excellent, Joanna. Thank you. Glad to have you on. And I was just thinking, Wendy, you're becoming a bit of almost a regular contributor. We've had you on a couple of times now in the last 6 or 7 weeks, so welcome back. But this obviously is your your forte of service accommodation. So over to you.
Yeah, so we've built a small portfolio of mainly apartments and a couple of houses that we offer as serviced accommodation, and we're now about to move into bigger properties, so more of the luxury holiday home market. We're also looking at small hotels as well.
Excellent, no problem at all. And I meant to actually say, let me jump back up to Mark actually has a case study on the platform, and what you can do is click on that case study, and if you like what you read and his model, you can leave an email address and an amount that you may be interested in investing if he was to put a live project on the platform. So just to draw your attention to that, and be the same for Joanna's whenever hers is up next week. And Wendy has a project that's actually about to go live tomorrow, which we'll mention later. So let's get into this. So John, I'll let you kind of host or run through these as you wish, but I'll pose the first one and you can take over. So maybe just for the attendees, each you take like just one sentence to explain what is service accommodation.
I'll go first then. So
yeah, go in the same order then on
okay.
On
So yeah, for us, we're in a real high tourist area. So for us, it's providing accommodation focused on tourists in the main season, basically. But obviously, it is all year round. And for us, taking into consideration sort of our experience, business experience, development experience, investment experience, it provides the greatest returns and is the most secure model. It's as simple as that.
Okay. I think was it Joanna was next?
Happy to go next. Yeah, so we look at service accommodation from a slightly different angle. So service accommodation is the temporary accommodation for people who need it. So rather than the holiday traffic, we look at people who are having to relocate for various reasons, whether that's life situations, insurance claims, and so on, and providing them with that kind of tailored temporary accommodation that's suited to their needs.
Good. And Wendy?
Serviced accommodation is basically self-catering accommodation that is serviced on a regular basis, a bit like your hotels are. And we operate mainly in the contractor market currently, and we're moving into the tourist market when we take on this luxury holiday property. We chose SA because we like the idea of having luxury holiday accommodation that we could go and stay in as part of our kind of lifestyle that we're moving into. Also, it does cash flow better than any other strategy. Pros and cons.
Hang on, sorry. We'll go.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No. So John, you're obviously big into like property strategies. There's all these different sort of sub niches. So I'll let you kind of frame the discussion and regarding sort of strategies.
Slightly summarize the first comments. There's a couple of people here who are servicing or providing a solution to the niche that is the temporary worker, the temporary relocation, my place burned, I need temporary location for insurance claims. So we have Joanna highlighting that. We have Wendy saying that is where a fair amount of our business is. And then we have the other side of that, which is more the vacation holiday sort of lifestyle experience. And Wendy's moving more into that, and Mark's dead center in that. Now, another interesting little tie is Joanna started out with rent to rent. And as she was transitioning out of her maternity leave, that was how she got started. Well, Mark is also doing a form of rent to rent with lease options. That's what his case study covers. So you have people who are not even acquiring buildings first before they set them up. In Mark's case, he's also, because he does a lease option, he's transitioning the property from buying it on a valuation that's tied to the bricks and mortar or comparable value. And he's creating that uplift, just like Wendy is, when it comes to getting revalued later after establishing the rent rolls. getting it revalued as commercial. So we have a short-term strategy, rent to rent. We have a medium-term strategy, renting certain niches. We have creating capital value just by improving cash flow. So there's quite a number of threads we can pick apart here today. And I want anyone listening to understand that you can start in service accommodation from a lot of different perspectives, and you can learn from these three. And because they're doing very nuanced strategies, they have very nuanced target customers. So actually, if we go a slightly different order this time, Joanna, why did you choose SA?
Why did I choose SA? I needed to focus on something that was high cash flowing. As I've mentioned, I had to start with rent to rent. So it had to be something that cash flowed well. And from the property strategies, it seemed to be, they were accessible to me at my level, being fairly new to all that. It was either SA or HMO, and SA seemed to resonate with me more on a personal level. I think we all kind of, have different things that we know we can do better at, and it was the concept of creating a product that was visually appealing, and then that kind of tailored offering that really appealed to me. But ultimately, the choice was very, very simple. It was what could generate more cash, and at the same time allow me to build up the experience, knowledge, and so on. And to be completely honest, why am I sticking with serviced accommodation still, and now looking to invest in SA? The answer is in a way similar. It's still the fact that it's still, performing when you compare it to others. It's a very well performing strategy. And it also, as a business model, because serviced accommodation is a really fully fledged business operation. It resonates with me as well, because it's a nice business in that way, a busy business to have.
Good, thank you. And Wendy, you've already said why you chose SA, but you also tend to outsource that, or you're going to, at least for your new project. So why, Joanne embraced sort of the day-to-day management, Mark embraces day-to-day management. Why do you want to use the third-party company to run your SA?
I guess because they're experts in what they do, and my strengths are in finding deals and getting the deals over the line. And that's the part of property that I love doing. And we kind of fell into SA by accident. We had developed 4 2-bedroom apartments in a block, and it overran by 18 months, and the market changed. We were sat with these apartments on the market, and we'd heard about SA, so we went and did a training course on it, came back, set them up, and hey presto, it's been fantastic ever since. So yeah, really love it.
Okay, so you were in a sense forced into it, or you pivoted into it. Joanna, actually, I know because Joanna was a client in a past life. She was coming off maternity leave, didn't necessarily want to go back to teaching, want to spend time with her daughter, and SA became the way to go for cash flow. So both of you are sort of responding to market conditions or personal circumstances. So Mark, when it comes to your SA focus, I know you had a different background before this. What attracted you to SA?
Well, previously I was a car dealer. We decided completely to pivot entirely out of the motor industry and into property. And one of the first sort of projects we did was actually building a 15-unit property. Now, again, similar to Wendy in a way, the project overran very slightly by 2 months, actually, which meant that we couldn't get our first influx of students. So we had a brand new, fully furnished, fully photographed, set up property, and 9 months to obviously try and bring some income in. I was doing lots of service accommodation training at the time, so we literally just set it up 15 units in one go as a stopgap, and it went so well that we then decided, instead of scaling our HMO portfolio, we would look at, we looked at the stock that's around us, and then obviously taking into consideration sort of our business experience, we've sort of come up with our own niche in our area, target areas, because there's lots of stock around us of traditionally run guest houses and hotels. And by dropping a very modern automated model into those, they are extremely profitable. And there's a lot of a lot of upside on sort of taking what is a traditionally run commercial property by Mr. and Mrs. who trade up to the VAT threshold, and changing it to our model, which can triple the revenue, and obviously, you get the returns from that ultimately, and then years down the line, obviously we season the income over a number of years, and then we're able to actually get commercial valuations on these properties, instead of obviously the bricks and mortar valuations that we're acquiring them on. So it's a long cycle. It's 3, 4, 5 years, but it works. We've done it ourselves with our own money with lease option properties. We've also done it with investors as well, and we've now sort of built a portfolio of owned and managed properties of £6.5 million with this exact strategy, basically.
Very good. So just to summarize or put a label on it, I call this residential to commercial conversions. So you're taking a residential property and you're turning it into a commercial valuation. Now, in the case of Mark's properties, many times they are already under the planning rules classified as commercial, but they're not valued that way because the operators are screwing up their books and records or intentionally keeping down the amount of income there and to keep below the VAT level. So they can't get a commercial valuation. Mark steps in, turns it around, seasons the rent roll, as I would call it. And then after 3 or so years, they can get a commercial valuation. And for those that are interested in the fine detail, you can jump to Wendy's offer that's on the platform. That's exactly what Untitled House is designed to be, where it's being purchased for a bricks and mortar valuation, going to be revalued after a certain amount of time on a commercial valuation. Time will tell how that works because commercial valuations are very sensitive to interest rates. And as we know, interest rates are bouncing around. But Joanna, do you have any focus on taking properties into commercial valuations, or are you intending to stick with the residential valuation?
At the moment, I'm sticking with the residential valuations. I'm exploring a mixture of commercial uses where we can add serviced accommodation to existing commercial units. I think, we all kind of look at different areas from different angles. Me being just north from London, for me, it's still acquiring the stock that's available in, and we're not a high touristy area. So it's acquiring the stock that we have available, which in many cases is just the standard residential, houses, and using them for serviced accommodation, because for me, this is what the need is. It allows us to triple the cash flow that those properties would normally generate from a standard single let, and it allows to address many of the issues that we're currently facing with the interest rates going up. So I am sticking to kind of what's around me, what I already know and understand well, and what has been working. So at the moment, staying within the residential sector. Okay,
very good. So I'm going to somewhat skip this pro and con slide because I think we've heard quite a bit of the pro. I want to highlight by using the question number 4. One of the cons of service accommodation is it is not a passive activity. And Wendy might have a slight solution to that by outsourcing. SA service accommodation is what I like to jokingly refer to as you need to be good at putting chocolates on the pillowcases and things like that for the guests, and customer service and all that becomes important. So if each of you could speak to the business side of it, the process side of it, the customer service side of it, the marketing, the setting your prices and dynamic pricing. So let's start with Mark, and then we'll go to Joanna, then Wendy.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I suppose, it is a fully fledged trading business ultimately. So exactly as you've said, you've got to take into account, everything from the review scores that you're getting, have systems and processes, and a team of people that actually can review those, pull the information out of them, and then obviously make improvements based on feedback. You need a team of housekeepers that obviously are working on, however you work, but for us, it's off the back of our software so that they know exactly which one of 70 units that we have they need to clean. Well, I say one on a day, it's 40, 50, or whatever, however many a day. in a seamless way so that you don't obviously get any customer service issues for whatever reason from that. There's a huge amount of sort of technology that can be utilized with serviced accommodation, because there's a lot of processes and there's a hell of a lot to it. So unless you're actually really sort of leveraging technology and creating really good systems around that technology, then it's either a lot of work or not running efficiently. It's as simple as that. So yeah, we use software for all of our revenue management. We've actually put together spreadsheets with lots of formulas in before we can even actually get the numbers into our revenue management software. All sorts of different things. So there's just lots and lots of systems and processes that you need to have in place to do it well.
And you've built a team of staff. You have overseas staff, you have local staff, obviously different skills as you've just highlighted. So Joanna.
Yes, I couldn't agree. I agree more to what Mark's already said. There are plenty of moving parts within serviced accommodation. And I think, it's one of those businesses that really never sleeps because there's always something happening. And I think the biggest challenge is being able to embrace the fact that you do run a business that doesn't really, have any closing times. It's being able to understand that and build up in a way that it works and allows you to kind of have a life as well. So building a team is key. But before that is as Mark mentioned, that the need to really systemize and document every single process within the business. I mean, Joe knows that I joke that on the kind of basic level, when we're talking about customer service and dealing with guests and doing the day-to-day basic operations, I have over 40 process documents just for that. And just now we're going through the process of hiring somebody who will be my right hand here on the ground. And that's another level of processes and documents that, things that need to be systemized. And when you think about it, it can be a really complex operation, even on a small scale, which is why I think, we see a lot of people come and go or come and say it's not for them and then ending up outsource it. So if you want to stay still fairly involved, you do need to love that aspect, I think. But it's also quite a fluid business, I think. Even just from this conversation, you can see that there are so many different niches within that, which can be quite difficult probably to grasp, but at the same time presents opportunities, because once you really dive into it and see how many different ways to make it work there are available, it gives a certain level of reassurance, because that there is movements, there's things that you can do as the market changes and the conditions change. So I think it's got almost any of those cons that we've discussed so far present some really interesting possibilities.
So Wendy, you're actually a business coach, and you're taking the view that you're going to outsource some of this work to a firm that will handle these things and therefore probably has processes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we initially, the first 2 apartments that we had in Aberdeen, we actually ran ourselves, and we realized quite quickly that it was taking up an awful lot of time, and it meant we weren't going to grow the portfolio very quickly if we continued working in that way. So when we looked around at solutions for that, we came across a great company called Pillow Partners. And so we kind of partnered up with them, if you like, and they've taken on pretty much full service management and looking after all of our properties. And they're based kind of all across the UK. And they're now overseas as well. So in terms of attracting guests from kind of all over the world, they've got that reach, and that really appealed to us. And that has freed our time up to focus on growing the portfolio and bringing more properties in and doing the bit that I'm good at. And that's, for me, it's about focusing on your strengths and the bit of the business that you enjoy.
Yeah, and interesting because I know Joanna quite well, Mark quite well. They're both into their processes and they whip up their lucid charts and other diagrams and showing flow diagrams. And Wendy, you're closer to what I'm thinking is the Marriott model, where Marriott as a corporation runs hotels, but they don't own them. So you're on the ownership side. You outsource to the brand that knows how to run them. And I think, Joanna, part of your business operation is you provide SA services to other landlords. Is that correct?
Yes, that's something that we started testing out last year and launched fully this year.
Cool. So any final comments from each of you? So real quickly, and David, if you have any questions, jump in, but if we can wrap up by Joanna, final comments to anyone considering SA?
I think, we can look at it from two perspectives. It's either investing in serviced accommodation and really kind of being able to eat the cake, not have the headaches, and outsourcing. And it can be fantastic for somebody who really wants to get involved and run it. I would say, get involved and try to witness and watch somebody do it first, just to make sure that you don't jump into it too soon. From an investment perspective, it's just checking, whether the numbers stack and whether you've got confidence with the people you're working with, because I think these are the most important things in two different angles. But it definitely is a fantastic strategy that is on the rise, because it's really only picking up speed now.
Very good. Mark?
Yeah, I suppose from my perspective, it's categorically not to do it yourself. It's categorically not a passive investment at all. My advice would be to do your due diligence, team up with the professionals that are doing this, that have the team and the experience and the documented case studies to give you the sort of peace of mind that it's going to be done right, and everything's going to obviously sort of you're going to have a secure investment for the long term and build long-term relationships through the skills of successful people that you're partnering with, basically. Very good. Wendy?
I think really think about why you want to do this. What is your kind of end goal? And ultimately, the role of a business owner is to create a system that runs without you. If the business heavily relies on you being involved, then it loses value at the end. So, what is your end goal, and how's what you're doing now going to help you get there?
That's very good. The idea of an exit strategy and not getting yourself so embedded that you have to sell yourself to the next buyer, otherwise it doesn't have value. For those that want to take a peek, that want to look under the curtain and want to sort of be the nosy neighbor and all those other analogies, you can go to the Leo crowdfunding site and look at Wendy's current offer. It's a service accommodation offer. It's adding value, converting to commercial, and all the rest that we just talked about. See what she has to say there. See if there are any questions. Start to think it through, start to think about, well, what if I was doing that? How would it appeal? What would make sense? What do I think of the numbers? So this is a very simple way to be a nosy investor and check out all the detail. And because it's shared publicly, you can ask questions on the forum and all the rest there and start to learn from that process. David, over to you.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting. John, thanks for the hosting that. I was quite intrigued with the conversation around the processes and scaling. Mark and I had a conversation about a week or so ago regarding just his use of VAs and how he's managed to scale his business and making sure everything runs as smooth as it possibly can. I suppose as a character, I'm more sort of with Wendy, it's like, can I outsource that? It's not my skill set in terms of wanting to be in the weeds and devising spreadsheets. So it's like, yeah, can I just outsource that rather than try and learn it? But I think the key thing is, as Wendy said, it's people going to their strengths. If strengths is the things that are needed to be hands-on in service accommodation, then maybe that's where you want to be. But if you're not, then don't try and be something your skill set isn't. I think definitely use other people, use expertise, learn over time, but don't have a model where the expertise required and you don't have it. I think it'll be my main takeaway. So brilliant, that's fantastic. Thanks for that. So let's quickly move on then to just finish up now, wrap up. So as John mentioned, Wendy's project, and I should have a proper drum roll and all. So Wendy's project goes live tomorrow at 12 o'clock. It'll be available on the platform for investment. So you can go to the platform, to the thumbnail you see on the left. When you click on View Deal, it takes you to the pitch pages. You can see an overview, financials, more about the team, the forum there for questions. And then, well, if today you can go on now and leave an email address and an amount you may be interested in investing, but it does go live for investment tomorrow. So this is offering a 12% IRR over 36 months. But you can get all the details in the pitch deck and then download the equity offer document and do all your DD. So I'm sure, Wendy, you're excited to get this live for investment tomorrow.
Very excited. Yeah, I can't wait. It's been a really exciting project to be involved in.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. So next week we are doing investment strategies in uncertain times, and that is wrong. I looked at the screen and went, those pictures don't match. Sorry, before next week's event, there's going to be a networking event.
Yeah, well, that one says November 3rd, so that is correct, maybe for November 3rd.
As a last minute interjection of a slide. So yeah, networking event. There's going to be a joint Leo crowdfunding PLMD networking event on the 3rd of November. So we're doing investment strategies in uncertain times. There'll be a shareholder meeting before this public meeting for all those involved in the Beacon Tree project that PLMD have done. They're about to pay back their next quarter on their income project. So there's a quick date for the diary. We get more information will be sent out, but 3rd of November, 7:15 registration in Stratford, and you'll obviously hear more about this over the next week or so. And next week's topic, high inflation and the property market. So I'm going to host a bit of a discussion and put John and Ian under a bit of pressure to really deep dive into their knowledge of the financial markets and how high inflation actually impacts the property market. So Ian Cartmell is one of our advisory boards at Leo Crowdfunding. He's very experienced in the world of property investment and in crowdfunding, but he's actually a chartered financial analyst and very, very experienced next hedge fund manager. So really understands this stuff. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion, John, next week.
Yeah, what's interesting is, so Ian lives in Switzerland and has also lived in Spain. He's from Australia. He's well-versed in the UK market, myself, US investor, UK investor. So you'll get also a more international perspective when it comes to inflation around the world, inflation in the UK, property in different locations. So it's more or less a high level conversation, and I'm old enough, as you can tell from the gray hair, that when I started, I was paying 10.75% interest on my house loan for my, what was an HMO, but didn't know it at the time. And that was in 1984 in Silicon Valley. And inflation, like, we're not even up to the inflation rate yet that I was used to then. So we're only going back to the future in some sense. And people have lived through this. Ian knows this too from his professional studies and work. So there are some things that are really painful, and there's some things that can work out quite well in higher inflation periods, but you do have to adapt to the weather.
Mm-hmm. And the comment you made there, John, is the bit I'm looking forward to diving into, that there actually can be some benefits of high inflation in the property market. So I'll just leave that hanging for next week. And then we're definitely going to dive into that. So if you want to know what we're talking about, how it's actually could benefit you if you're involved in property of high inflation, then be here next week at 10 a.m. So I think that is us for today. For those that haven't been on the YouTube channel, you can go on there. There's the URL, very straightforward, the youtube.com/Leo crowdfunding. If you haven't already, subscribe and add to our growing community that is using this as a good educational resource. So there's the details to get us. So that's us for today. So any last minute things, John, need to say before we go?
No, I think it's all good. If you do go to the YouTube recordings, leave comments, subscribe to the channel. David and his team will be checking every now and then if there's any questions or comments so that we can get back to you. So I do encourage further feedback on the channel.
But we won't be checking until we get Joanna's case study done. So there you are, Joanna. Okay. Listen, massive thanks to Joanna, to Wendy, and to Mark. And Wendy, you can get your seatbelt buckled up for the next 4 or 5 days now when we go live. It'll be
brilliant,
full on questions to be answered in the forum, and all that. So all very exciting stuff. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, John, again for hosting. And we'll see you all hopefully next week at 10 a.m. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Right.